Well, good evening. I'm Alan Jackson, and welcome back to Nashville. If there was ever a time to hear the truth versus what a lot of media puts out each day, the time is now. Honest journalism has, for the most part, been put on the shelf and replaced by an echo chamber of spin and one-sided storytelling. Facts are out, and advocacy and attitude are in. Here are just a few examples. The deportation of known foreign criminals is well underway, and thank goodness for that. But if you listen to the echo chamber, America is in danger of losing its workforce, and there's no mention of the murders, rapes, abductions, theft, and the children that have been sold to the sex trade. Protesters took over the lobby of the Trump Tower in New York City with their pro-Hamas and anti-Semitic noise. So the authorities are trying to weed out troublemakers. But the media would like you to believe that President Trump is pushing for citizens who only support him. And they say nothing about how Hamas brutally killed innocent women, children, husbands, and fathers. Tariffs are being used to protect American jobs and businesses. But the storytellers make it sound like the tariffs are only here to raise prices. Well, the Department of Education is cutting jobs. The angst is rampant, even though the facts are that this nationwide department spends $250 billion a year only to see student test scores go down to the bottom of the top 40 countries. So the election honeymoon, it's winding down and the deception is ramping up. Well, our guest tonight has seen this show before and he knows exactly how to deal with it. He's the founder of the American Majority, Ned Ryun. Welcome back to our show, sir.
Alan, great to be with you.
Let's start with how some of the president's opponents are handling their loss of power. They're setting fire to Tesla cars and trucks. They're using more profanity on the airwaves to try to sound more like regular folks. And they're looking for attention by saying they'll leave the country. Rosie O'Donnell, for example, she rose to fame and enjoyed a penthouse in New York City, a home in West Palm Beach, and a multi-million-dollar mansion in Saddle River, New Jersey. But now she's upset with America, so she moved to Ireland. And we're hearing her name across the media again. What do you think about all this?
First of all, I think it's becoming apparent to most normal Americans that the modern Democratic Party isn't their granddaddy's Democratic Party. It is a deeply un-American, far-left party that is really in many ways antithetical to everything that this country is about. And what you're seeing them do is really display a lot of what I have described as rising fascist behavior. When they don't get their way, they start to burn things, they start to destroy them, and they're not handling being out of political power very well. And I think that's a mild understatement. And I think what's happening is you see them in complete and total disarray, Alan, in that they don't know what to do. They have no answers. They have no real solutions. The American people are looking at Donald Trump and his first couple months, not even quite 2 months in office, and realizing this is the answer. And you see Donald Trump's popularity. You see the popularity of his policies. Doge is extremely popular. And Democrats are in disarray because they have no real answers or solutions to bettering the lives of the American people.
You know, President Trump is a master negotiator, whether it's with Canada, Mexico, China, but there's a lot of confusion out there about the tariffs. You know, obviously the president wants what's best for American business and the job market, but I don't think there's enough of an understanding yet about how tariffs have been used in the past and the positive effect that they can have. Can you help us understand that a little bit?
Well, I think people need to understand that what we've been experiencing for way too long is a post-World War II trade dynamic in which the 1950s, 1960s, and continuing on, we had a lot of bad trade deals, intentionally so in many ways, to actually rebuild the world, to rebuild Germany, to rebuild Japan. And a lot of people are still operating in that post-World War II mentality, and those trade deals were deeply unfair to America, but it was meant to rebuild the rest of the world out, obviously, after World War II. I think the other thing, too, that people need to understand, Alan, is that the arsenal of freedom and democracy for the rest of the world is American manufacturing. To me, this is a national security issue that Donald Trump is looking at going, we have to rebuild our manufacturing base in this country, not only to better the lives of the American people, to bring more jobs home, but also because when the world is in crisis, and America has to come to the rescue. It has been our manufacturing base that has not only saved this country, but I would argue multiple times has actually saved the world. So I'm very happy with what Donald Trump is doing, not only with Europe, he's also cracking the whip with Canada and Mexico and letting it be known, I am out here on behalf of the American people, what is best for the American people, what is best for our economy. And I have to tell you this, Alan, I think in the recent past, we've had many immoral leaders. I think the moral imperative of every national leader is to actually implement policies that advance and protect the interests of the American people. And to not do that is deeply immoral. And I think what Donald Trump is doing on a whole host of issues, whether it's immigration, whether it's trade and tariffs, I think is a deeply moral stance that is for the betterment of the American people. So I think as more and more people start to understand the issue of tariffs and these bad trade deals, they understand what Donald Trump is doing.
I could not agree more. The criticisms are getting out of control. MSNBC had a conversation about how Doge was racist since it's trying to dismantle a government that a black man built. I guess that was a reference to Barack Obama. But the government's been oversized for decades, and the media is now desperate to say anything as long as it's critical of Trump. Is that all they know how to do?
It really is. I don't even want to call them media, Alan. I call them corporate propagandists. They are there to amplify any and all narratives that they consider to be damaging to Donald Trump. Of course, they're ignorant. The fact that MSNBC would say that, trying to destroy a government that was built by a black man shows their deep ignorance about where the administrative state and this massive bureaucracy came from. It's been around for over 100 years. And, recently Elon Musk said in the Oval Office that they started with Doge going after waste, fraud, and abuse, and he's really discovered that they're dealing with the rule of bureaucrats. And I want people to understand the administrative state and rule of bureaucrats was always the intention of progressives. And I think what you're seeing with Doge, and I think the reason you're seeing such a visceral reaction from the left, is that they understand that what Doge is doing, I hope, and will eventually do, is unmake the administrative state and actually restore representative democracy and government in this country, because that's what's at stake. I think people need to understand what's going on in DC has been a conflict between two very different governing philosophies, administrative state, rule of bureaucrats that has nothing to do with what our founders intended, versus a constitutional republic, again, with its diffusion of powers, in which all power flows from the people to their duly elected representatives, who they've made stewards of the power and money given to them to actually form a government of, by, and for the people. So when you see this conflict taking place in DC, understand what is happening. It is a massive clash of two very different governing philosophies.
Well, one of the most talked about big cuts in government is the Department of Education. Billions spent, and our country's at the bottom of the list when student test scores are compared. Listen to what the president said.
Department of Education's, maybe more so than any other place, has a lot of people that can be cut. They're, number one, not showing up to work. Number two, they're not doing a good job. And if you look at the charts, because they have numerous charts where they do the top 40, we're at number 37, 38, 39, and 40. And recently they hit, during Biden's last few days, they hit last. So they were number 40, and yet we're number one in cost per pupil.
Now, do you know what the Democrats are trying to hang on here, if anything?
Well, they're trying to hang on to the status quo, and it is a status quo and a form of governance that does not benefit or advance the interests of the American people. The American people's lives have not been made better by the rule of bureaucrats. And in regards to the Department of Education, it is my sincere hope. I know that President Trump has instructed Secretary McMahon that he hopes to end the Department of Education. I hope he takes it a step further, Alan. I hope that he not only ends the Department of Education, that he actually implodes the building, razes it to the ground, and I would argue builds his garden of heroes over the site where the Department of Education used to be first for symbolic reasons. He has to destroy the administrative state to restore representative government in this country. And also, too, to build that garden of heroes over this former edifice of the administrative state to remind people we are a great country. Our republic has been an amazing form of government, one of the greatest governments this world has ever seen. Let's celebrate it. So I hope that he actually makes some pretty strong moves here in the next few years, especially in regards to the Department of Education, but then also goes after HUD and some other departments that I think need to be ended and completely shut down.
Well, Ned, stay with us for another segment. And for those of you watching, send me an email during the break and we'll read it out loud during an upcoming show. Ned, right after the break, I want you to tell our viewers about a special show that you're putting on soon. We'll be right back. We're back now with the founder of American Majority, Ned Ryun. I love the name of your organization because you do represent majority of the country, and the polls show that. So did the American public when they voted in a Republican majority. Before we go any further with the program, I understand you have a special program coming out this week. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I really wanted to do a documentary on my book, American Leviathan, to be able to show people with conversations with senators, with congressmen, with people that have been in D.C., really to tell the story of what has been going on in D.C. for the last 100 years, to really help people reach a point of clarity in regards to how D.C. actually operates, the reality of what we're up against. The documentary is going to be by the same name of the book, American Leviathan, and people can go to AmericanLeviathan.com. And the reason I'm doing this, the book and the documentary, Alan, at the end of the day, it is the American people who will play a significant role in actually ending the administrative state and administrative power. They're the ones that are going to actually ask Congress to step up to the plate and actually legislate. They're going to continue to support President Trump, I hope, inspire the judges to make the right decision. But the American people can only play a significant role in ending the administrative state and restoring representative government if they actually know what's going on. So that's my hope. AmericanLeviathan.com is the website, that people will watch it, be inspired, but also have real clarity on how DC actually operates.
Well, the president is determined to get the budget to revenue neutral, eliminating any added debt to the $36 trillion we already owe. Elon Musk says he thinks he can cut as much as $1 trillion in the next budget, and he thinks he's figured out why entitlements got so out of control. Listen to how he put it.
The way it's important in entitlement spending, which is which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. That's like the big one to eliminate, because that's the sort of $500 billion, maybe $700 billion a year. That is also a mechanism by which the Democrats attract and retain illegal immigrants by essentially paying them to come here, and then turning them into voters.
If the president can eliminate the fraud and waste, do you think he can get close to a revenue neutral budget during his term in office?
I think you're going to have to make some hard decisions in regards to some of the entitlement programs. But the first step, Elon's completely correct. The reason that many of these illegal immigrants have been coming over is to tap into our social welfare programs. And of course, these social welfare programs are already on the brink of insolvency. And part of the reason that they are is because there is so much fraud, waste, and abuse in the midst of them. I would remind people that Medicare and Medicaid fraud annually is about $146 billion. And when you look at what's taking place with Social Security, I saw something from one of the Doge X handles today, that there are actually more people on the Social Security roll than there actually is the population in this country. So I think what Elon and Doge have to do is go in and plug those holes. And they are significant holes, hundreds of billions of dollars, if not more, every year in waste, fraud, and abuse in these entitlement programs. And then we have a conversation about what these look like moving forward. But Elon's right. About 70% of our federal budget comes from mandatory spending in regards to entitlement programs and some of the other things like national defense. I think we have to have a conversation across the board on what is the role of government? What should government be doing in our lives? How big should government be? What do the American people hope to have from their government? And I think we need to have that conversation as well, to then go, okay, we're $36 trillion in debt. This is unsustainable. We have to make hard decisions and begin to have that conversation.
Well, one quick question before we go. You got millions of people that come out to vote, but the president and congressional Republicans need those same voters to get behind the hard work of making changes now, changes they voted for. So my question is, will the folks be motivated to get out and help?
My hope is that the American people are going to continue to put pressure on their elected leaders in Congress to actually step up and represent the American people. I mean, the story of the last really half century, I'd even argue the whole last century, is that our legislators have not done their duty. They have subdelegated legislating and governance to the unelected bureaucrats. They have ducked the hard issues. It's time for Congress to actually get some political courage and moral courage and actually represent the American people and make some hard decisions that are necessary to benefit the American people. So my sincere hope is the American people will actually push on this. We have a moment in time. Let's not squander it.
Amen. Well, Ned Ryun, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Alan.
We very much enjoy your inside view of things, especially in this fast-moving environment. Remember his special American Leviathan, it's coming soon. We come back, a few thoughts of my own. There is a way forward. Stay tuned. It's remarkable the changes that are swirling around us these days and the multitude of opinions around it all. Criminal illegal aliens are being deported. Our border is more secure now than in years prior. Government waste is being exposed. Ineffective federal agencies are getting pruned. The war in Ukraine is working toward a resolution. A multitude of lives will be spared from that. You would think the legacy media would report this surge of good news enthusiastically, even celebrate maybe. But instead, we get dark clouds, foreboding commentary, all in an effort to convey panic. It's deceptive. The reality is change is never embraced by everyone. In seasons of change, there are lots of opinions about what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, what's right, what's wrong. Well, frequently decisions are based upon what I think, how I feel. However, I would submit to you, if the consequences are significant enough, decisions must be based upon something more than just individual opinion or preference. For those of us who consider ourselves to be Christ followers, we have a resource to help us make better decisions and to stay in the way of truth. Psalm 119, it's verse 30, I have chosen the way of truth. I've set my heart on your laws. I run in the path of your commands, for you've set my heart free. Choose to read your Bible in a systematic way on a daily basis. God will give you greater understanding of His laws and commands. That understanding, in turn, will help you make better choices. When we choose the way of truth and run in the path of His commands, we'll not miss the purposes of God for our lives. God's moving in the earth in a way I've never seen before. Let's make the choice to go with Him. It'll bring hope to your life. When I return, I'll read some of your emails. Thank you for taking the time to send your emails, your thoughts and perspectives. They're important to us. Elizabeth Cannon wrote, I keep going back to a single thought. These sanctuary city mayors are elected by citizens. The failure rests with the voters. Elizabeth, I think you're on to the truth. We've chosen these leaders. We've got to make different decisions. I think the other side of that equation is if cities don't want to obey federal laws, they shouldn't be given federal funds. I think the absence of federal funds will help voters make up their minds for a better future. Peggy B. emailed, my husband and I watch your podcast and your sermons every day, and we've learned and grown in our faith. Thank you. I tried to explain to an acquaintance today on Facebook why I back Trump. I said I believed he changed after the assassination attempt and turned to God, and he's allowing God to use him. I don't always agree with how he does things, but I choose forgiveness and grace for him as Jesus does for me. Well, this person and two others attacked me and said that Trump doesn't believe in God and what he's done in the past is unforgivable. They said a true Christian could not support Trump. How should I respond, or should I? Well, I try not to argue with people who I think are behaving in a foolish manner. And I think their response lacks an awareness of Scripture, the mercy of God, the nature of forgiveness, and it's failing to recognize the good things that Mr. Trump is doing for our country. He's telling more truth around our biological sex, the nature of marriage, about living with a balanced budget than anybody I've heard in Washington in a long time. I choose to support those decisions because I believe they will bring liberty and freedom to us and God's blessing. Spend your time encouraging people that are celebrating the truth. Well, make sure you send your emails to comments@alanjacksonnow.com. From all of us here in Nashville, thank you for joining us tonight and have a wonderful evening.